First of all, I spent most of my growing up time, we lived on Curtis Street, right up on top of what's called Stadium Hill, overlooking the stadium. If I wasn't at the stadium, I was in the 100-acre lot. I lived at one place or the other. But I remember the very last Falcons game because we were sitting on the front porch watching it. That was before the pine trees grew to, what, 75 feet or something like that now. And I don't recall what the score was, but I know Jamestown was behind. We hadn't had a good season, I guess, really for a couple of years. At any rate, it was the bottom of the ninth. There was few people in the stands, and it was 2 outs, and the last batter for Jamestown that could have had a chance of doing anything was at the plate. And I remember watching with binoculars, and he swung out. He struck out swinging. There was not a sound from the stands. People just stood up and left. And it was sad. You know, the game was over, and that was it. That was the end. There was no more Falcon games. What led me to talk to Russ here was because at about that time or next year or whatever, he was manager, I think, for the Marlin Rockwell baseball team, back when every shop in town had a team. And I was bat boy from time to time. Quite often, I'd look down there and there was a game going on, so I'd roar down the hill and just be a bat boy. I didn't care. It just was fun being there. My uncle played with Marlin Rockwell that year, so matter of fact, he might have sort of got me in down there a little bit.
Who's your uncle?
Wayne Johnson. Yeah. Then I was bat boy for the Moose Club team when Charlie Goodell was the catcher, and I remember following that season, I wrote to him. He got elected to Congress, and I wrote to him asking if he knew if there was going to be a Moose baseball team the next year. I remember getting back a letter from him on congressional stationery and so forth, but he wasn't sure, he didn't know for sure. The manager was Spike Nelson, wasn't it? And yeah. And the neighbor, two houses down from us, that summer was having the inside of their walls plastered, and I came walking by and looked in the window, and there was Spike in there plastering the wall, and it just never occurred to me that he would do anything else but play baseball. And I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "This is what I do." "What do you mean, what do you do?" "You play baseball, you're a manager." "No, I do this for a living, that's for fun." I made no connection. Baseball was what you did. So anyway, I knew that there was going to be a new team in town for the Tigers when they formed up, and as Russ pointed out, I went down there. They were practicing one day probably about 2 or 3 days before the season opened. And I wandered down the stadium, and my dog was with me, and my dog climbed up in the box seats right beside the little swinging gate that was there, went out to the Jamestown dugout. And I was leaning on the rail, and the manager came walking. That was Al Federoff, and he stopped to talk to my dog, and I said, I asked him if he had a bat boy. He said, "No, we don't." I said, "Well, could I? I've done it before." "Yeah, okay." So, I mean, it was that simple. He took me in the locker room and turned me over to Jerry Klein. He was a team. Yeah, that was an experience too. I was terrified of him.
He was the bus driver.
Yeah. He was the everything. He was the whatever. But he fixed me up with a uniform. And now, by the way, at that time I was probably 12 years old, but I was probably 5'11" or so. And so I didn't have too much trouble with the uniform length, but it was the width that was a problem. So my mother, took some in here and there and so forth and made it presentable. But it was a real Tigers uniform. And I think that first year, I'm trying to recall now, that we had 2 different uniforms. One had the big fancy D on it for Detroit, and I think the other one had a real sort of an Old English J on it. I think for Jamestown, but it was still Tigers. I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, it was a real uniform. It was wool, and it was baggy. And it was a real baseball uniform instead of painted on spandex like we got now. Anyway, I was tickled pink. I didn't know what to do with myself because having been bat boys for different teams and stuff, I'd never had a uniform before. My mother used to play softball on 2 or 3 different teams in town here. When I was little enough to just about drag a bat, I was bat boying for her softball team, and I remember that the spikes at that time had fairly long tongues on them. You always used to flop them forward on your spikes. Well, I didn't have spikes, but the shoes I had a semi-long tongue. It was about, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or a longer tongue. So I'd fold those over. That was when I was the bat boy. I'd fold that tongue over, and that was my uniform. It was you know. Anyway, I had a terrific time down there. I didn't get paid squat because we were talking about the general manager, Nick Ciccarella, squeeze a nickel to the Buffalo cried. And I think I was getting $2 a game, but they actually took out Social Security and all that kind of stuff. Well, they said they did. I got paid cash. It wound up being something like 97 cents a game or something. Every week I'd get, whatever it was. It would hardly keep me in bubble gum, but I'd have done it for free, literally for free. And it was just a ball down there. The players, like I said, I was 12, 13, 14 in that area. A lot of these guys weren't very much older than me. They came right down. I think a lot of them were college. I know that a lot. Ray Couchy was a catcher, I believe. I remember asking him one time what he was taking in college, and he was looking for a degree in chemistry. I don't know whatever, if he ever went on into that field or what, but I think most of them were college students or whatever. But it was a lot of fun. I took the job seriously. My dad told me when you're working down there, you hustle. You don't stroll around. If you're going out for a bat, or you're bringing balls up to the umpire, whatever, you double time. I always did that. I always ran. And going to the main office, when people like Mr. Nalbone needed new baseballs, going down to the office and trying to talk 3 new baseballs out of Nick Ciccarella. You don't know the arguments. I wouldn't say the arguments, but I said, Mr. Donatelli wants baseball. Mr. Nalbone, whoever it was, wants new baseballs, and he squeeze out 2 of them to me, and then I'd have to sit by the edge of the dugout and make a little mud puddle over here and goop them all up and stuff, and then take them out so they were just right. And there was all the bats, of course, had to be dragged out. We had a big sea bag that all the bats went into. Drag those out, and I'd line them up. I usually line them up by length because there weren't too many different lengths of bat, but most of the guys knew theirs. If there was a longer bat, they could look over here where the longer bats were instead of sorting through all of them. I'd just line them up by length and so forth. I think it just occurred to me just a couple nights ago when I was thinking about this. I think I probably hold the distinction of being the only bat boy in the history of baseball to be thrown out of a game. I was sitting in the dugout and I was ragging on the umpire just like everybody does, and I'm almost sure it was Mr. Donatelli, but I finally must have said something, or it was just enough, whatever it was. In time, he walked over and says, "You leave the dugout now. Go on, get out of here." Go on, get out of here. You should have heard the crowd get on him. Threw the bat boy out. So, I think it was Donatelli. I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah. And so I dragged myself out. As I went out through that swinging gate there, the dugout. Took my hat. What are you going to do? And so I went back in the locker room and changed clothes. Then I came back out and I just kind of hung around there by the dugouts till the game was over. And then I went back in and got all the bats and cleaned up like I do what I'm supposed to do. But I think I've got to be the only bat boy that ever got kicked out of the game. But,
Did they give you a bonus that game?
No.
Did you get fined?
No. But speaking of that, this is what made me feel really part of that organization down there was at least once a year, once a season, or maybe a couple times, I think they call it Player Appreciation Night. And they would just kind of pass a hat, and it was divvied up, and I got a cut. And that just, I couldn't believe it. I did not expect that. But I got the same cut that everybody else got. It came out $3 or whatever it was. But I thought, man, this is great. This is just great because I'm actually part of this team. Actually, a couple of kids actually asked me for an autograph. And I said, I'm the batboy. Yeah, but you're a tiger. So I mean, it was that kind of an atmosphere there. I just loved it in there.
How about road trips?
I only went on one road trip, and that was, I think I told you it was Elmira, and I think it was, but it was an overnighter, so I think it probably was Elmira. We traveled in, there were, I guess, probably Volkswagen type vans. They were not regular big buses. And I got on the bench seat right behind the driver's seats, facing backward. And I wound up sitting backwards. Well, I didn't know it until that trip was about halfway over, but I get sick riding backwards. And I was just, just trying to do everything to think of not getting sick. And finally, I'm pretty sure Pat Jarvis said, "You're all right or what?" I said, "I'm getting sick from riding backwards." "Why don't you say so?" So he switched seats and everything was fine after that. But I even got meal money, just like the rest of the team did. And I don't remember whose room I stayed in, but I mean, it's just like really being a member of the team. We all went to a movie, and I remember the rule was every other seat. You don't sit side by side. That's not, every other seat. And we took like 2 rows and screamed and yelled and threw popcorn. This is great. And there was no other rowdiness. I don't think anybody went to a bar. It was just fun. It was just a ball. It was just like being out with a bunch of older brothers or something. There was a time, one game, the opposing batter swung at a third strike. Catcher dropped the ball, I think it was. Whatever it was, he had to tag the batter. And the catcher was Pate Luck. Oddest name I've ever heard. P-A-P-E-L-U-K-K. And a little short fire plug. The batter didn't realize that he had dropped the ball, so he starts walking away from the plate. Pate picked up the ball, trotted over, and really thumped him. He gave him a whack you could hear from our dugout. And he took exception, turned around, and we'll push and shove him. Well, of course, both benches emptied. And I had been standing right by the corner of the dugout with the lead bat because that was, there was a third batter, and I figured if he's out, I'll just toss out in the on-deck circle. Both benches emptied, and I started heading out there. I had this lead bat in my hand. Now, I didn't necessarily plan on using it, but I was kind of looking for the other bat boy. and there was some shoving and pushing out there. Well, that was a year that Ken McGowan was on the team, pitcher. He was on the police department here and worked with Cap Peterson and myself. And, he's down in Florida now. But he was on the team. And I remember everybody running by me. I was just strolling out there to see what was going on, but everybody's just rushing by. And all of a sudden I feel an arm on my shoulder, and I turn around and it's Ken. He says, "You stay in the dugout." I said, "But I get to sit in the dugout." And he made me go back and sit in the dugout. And nothing ever, it was a lot of hot air, and everybody sat down again. I don't know. It's well, I was sitting there thinking about this, like I said the other night. And
Who's some of the ball players that you have members of?
Well, Jim Ricker was probably the most notable that I recall that went on to the majors and so forth. He had an arm that was like a howitzer. I've never seen anybody throw a ball like he does. And I recall one time specifically he caught a fly in deep center field right out by that giant moose that was on the scoreboard out there. There was a runner on third who tagged up and took off, and Jim threw him out from deep center. Don Bryant was the catcher, and he threw a ball that was just a perfect strike right to the plate and just bang, and he was out by 3 feet. And I just couldn't believe anybody could throw a ball that far, that hard, and that accurately. They had, once in a while, they'd have it was a little fun and games thing, like between double headers or something. They'd put a bucket out on second base, and they have to throw from the plate. All the catchers would have to do this, throw from the plate and put the ball in the bucket. And they'd have throws from the outfield. most accurate throw to the plate from the outfield and so forth, and Jim always won that one. He was also very fast runner, and they would have timed runs around from home plate all the way around home plate again. And I remember in one of these things, he took off running, and he was streaking. He came around third base, and his foot slipped as it hit the bag. He just skidded right off, right out towards the Jamestown dugout. He just slid right across the grass, and he was so embarrassed that he had slipped and fallen. He just laid there rolling around, and I thought he must have really got hurt. He was just so embarrassed he didn't want to stand up again. That was all it was. He was rolling around hoping he could just roll away or something. Like I said, the manager the first year there was Al Federoff. He was a very no nonsense kind of guy. But then after that was Stubby Overmeyer, and more fun. He was like a Spike Nelson kind of guy, just easy going. I don't think I ever saw him scream, yell, or raise his voice, as opposed to Al, who frequently screamed, yelled, and raised his voice. But Stubby was real good to me. He was just like
Was he a catcher?
I don't know. He was the manager, but I don't know what he ever played.
Was he a pitcher?
Jim or John Schmidt was a pitcher.
Yes, thank you.
He was from Brooklyn or someplace. I could hardly understand what he said. Left-hander who every time he threw the ball brought it across real high and he'd spin his cap around sideways. After every single pitch, you have to turn his hat around. But if the batter hit the ball or anything happened, of course it stayed there. He forgot about it. He'd be walking around, sometimes he'd forget. And he'd go another 3 or 4 pitches with his hat on sideways. It was the most ridiculous looking thing I ever saw.
You mentioned Pat Jarvis. He played for a while, didn't he?
I think he did. And then he went on to be a county sheriff someplace down south and I think he retired that, as a sheriff. But I never heard him more. The last, I knew that Jim Rooker had gone on to the majors, and then I saw just a few years ago here, he's in some commercial that was on TV, and I told my wife, I know him, he used to play for Jamestown, Oh. Yeah. Yeah, Bryant was about probably 6'5" or 6'6". He was a big one. And his wife was a knockout. She was just, everybody was just drooling whenever she'd come to the stadium. And there was one particular play where it was a long throw from outfield. The ball took a bad skip right in front of the plate and caught him right square in the mouth. Right square in the mouth, and knocked him out for a short time. And he was hit hard enough so that they came out with a stretcher. When he was hanging off both ends of the stretchers, they took him out. And his wife was, of course, very worried. She was right there in that little box right next to the dugout. And as they carried him out through that gate there, he said, "Well, no making love tonight, honey." His lip was all way out to here already. He took a shot, awful shot. Speaking of that box right there, that's where Doc Holman was the team doctor. Pardon?
Ted Holmes.
Huh? He used to sit there, and his favorite, you probably heard this, his favorite expression to the umpire was, "You spineless amoeba." That was all he would say. He never said anything else, but "You spineless amoeba, umpire," whatever, I guess that was real scientific talk, I was pretty impressed by it, but yeah, he'd sit there, and I remember that the members of the team frequently say, "I hope I don't get hurt." I don't know if they didn't have much faith in him or what, but he was there every night. Every single night he was there.
Were you there the following year when Rooker come back as a pitcher?
I don't think so. I remember that he did come back as a pitcher, but I don't believe I was. No, I'm pretty sure I wasn't there then.
Did you try to convert him, Russ?
Yes, and then
He
he
did.
went on to the majors as a pitcher.
Yeah, because he has
But they tried to convert him here. I mean,
He was here 1 year and he played center field, he pitched a little bit.
he did fill in. If they had somebody, a batter up there that they had to put out by just pure muscle, I mean, just blow a ball by him so fast and hard that he couldn't swing at it. That was it. They'd bring him in from center field. And he would throw 3 screaming meanies in there that nobody could swing on, and that was it.
Historically, had he come up as a pitcher though, and then they converted him into a
He
fielder?
up center fielder.
That's interesting.
Just a little in the following year.
So it started, that's kind of interesting point there.
There was,
He had a pretty lady, his wife was
yeah, yeah. There was, one of the guys was a catcher, and I can't think of his name now. It was early in one of the seasons. He got cut from the team. He hadn't been doing terribly well, batting and so forth. And I remember him sitting in his car when I came to the stadium one afternoon before a game. He had just got his pink slip, and he was sort of sitting sideways with his feet out of his car. And, I said, you should have been on the field by this time. I said, what's going on? I said, got cut. I had never experienced anybody being fired from anything before. And he was obviously, upset and sad about it. Boy, I didn't feel right the rest of the day because he got fired. He fired, but he did, But there was a. I'm not sure if he was what his actual job was with. I think the old Jamestown Morning Sun, which I had a paper route for. Whatever his job was with the paper, he also did some artwork and cartooning. I can't remember his name for the life of me.
Art Lindbergh?
No,
Not that Brad.
no, he went on to do some stuff in pro basketball.
Well, he had drawn up this cartoonish sort of a tiger he had in body that he put on a little baseball player's uniform, and there was about every week in the paper was a little cartoon with this tiger doing something, just like a little political cartoon type of thing. And I had, ever since I could hold a pencil, had sketched and doodled and cartooned and stuff like that. And I thought it'd be kind of neat if right on the team's locker room door, the outer door, if this tiger was on there. So I called him up at the paper. I called him up at the paper and told him who I was and so forth, and asked me if I could use his tiger, to put on the door. I said, sure, go ahead. So, in fact, I may still have this thing at home somewhere. I copied it in larger, about like this, and with model paints and stuff, I painted on the door of the locker room, Jamestown Tigers on there. I had this tiger cartoon. I think I still may have that at home
Well,
someplace.
that's the kind of stuff I was just talking about.
I'll have to dig, but I think I may have it.
It has value for somebody.
Yeah.
You just lost it. No.
That'd be a great picture to put in a book. Was there a pitcher named John Eisen?
Mm-hmm. He also played first base,
Did he?
and he was a good hitter.
Well, that's all I remember is a pitcher who hit the heck out of the ball.
Yeah. Well, McGowan did that too. He'd be brought in as a pinch hitter because he was so strong. It didn't matter. His specialty was relief pitching. So if they needed a home run hit, most of the time they'd bring in either Eisen or McGowan, one or the other, because they could hit the snot out of the ball. Eisen was he was pitcher, and I'm almost sure he played first base too.
Was there also a guy named Ike Kelly? Was there any black guys when you were there?
Ralph Woods was black as opposed to Puerto Rican or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ralph Woods was there. In fact, if there was a rain delay, he would go up in the stands with a microphone and sing. He was a good singer. If Jerry Klein wasn't singing, who was a bad singer. But yeah, Ralph Woods would go up there and he'd sing. He was a pretty good player. He played infield, shortstop or second, I'm not sure which.
Who was the relationships, blacks and the whites?
I thought it was good. I never saw any problems there. But then, kids generally don't, I think. I don't recall any particular problem. There were several Puerto Rican players, one of whom thought my uniform pants were better tailored for him than his were. I came in to change in the locker room one day before a game, and I took down his uniform pants. He was a terrific. He was always trying to perfect the perfect slide to second base and avoid the tag. He was always gymnastic, always. But well, these pants were just covered with dirt. I mean, ground in, grass stains and everything else. I thought, where did this come from? Because I didn't slide around. So I put them on. I didn't have any choice. And I noticed they fit a little different, but it had my belt on them, so I thought, well, anyway, it was about half an hour later, the one guy his name was, I think Rojas, came to me and said, come on to the locker room. So I went down there and says, I switched pants because mine were all dirty. It bothered him. It made me feel bad. So we switched pants back, and he wore his old grubby ones, but he did fess up. But, there was another black guy that I recall, very muscular. He played third base, I think, third or short. And I can't for the life of me think of his name. He was a good player, real good. Ralph Woods, like I said, he was very fast. He could run like a deer. He was pretty much the base stealing wizard for the team down there.
You've mentioned something that'd be interesting for the tape is during rain delays. You just talked about Jerry Klein. Tell me about that. How would that work?
No, I didn't hear that.
Oh, you talked about rain delays. Jerry Klein would sing or Ralph Woods would sing. How would that work?
He just got up in the stands with a microphone and entertained the crowd.
Really?
Yeah. If it was just pouring sheets of rain, Jerry, they had a microphone they lower down from the press box on a big cord, and he'd tell jokes and sing dumb songs and entertain the crowd. They'd be singing along with him because everybody from the bleachers would move into the grandstand. It was covered, and we're just sitting around in the dugout with nothing to do. So every once in a while, like I said, Ralph Woods would go there and he'd sing, whatever he wanted to, but more up to date. Jerry sang stuff like "You Are My Sunshine," stuff like that. But it was he just entertained the crowd until the rain let up, or it was called, or whatever.
You're sort of the jack of all trades, wasn't he? Self-programmed.
Yeah, he was. He was like he was the fixer. He was he was the manager of the team, but he was sort of their dad too, I guess, if you want to call it that. He just looked after them all.
Yeah.
He had a green, probably 38 or 39 or 40, I think it was a Cadillac or a Sal two-door. There was as much trunk behind the passenger area as there was hood in front. Huge long thing. He rode that back and forth from Florida every year. It was, I don't know if he lived in it or what, but it was just about enough room in there for Jerry.
He had.
But he,
10 or 11 kids. Oh, yeah, big
did he?
He lived on Faulkner. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was like,
I never saw him without a cigar button.
no.
Yeah. Never.
He lived on next to the old black. Just.
Well, Greg has some memories of Klein singing with Reagan, right?
Yeah, I got. Well, he's eating there. I went to Cleveland and last year with camcorder in hand, and I won't tell you how I got the press pass, but I got the press pass. I'm on the field and looking for basically Tony Phillips. Tony Phillips playing with the Tigers, and I just wanted to have him say something about baseball and Pat Doherty, and because I've got a video that I've kind of put together. And I was tracking down Tony, I saw on the roster Phil Regan. Phil Regan pitched here in 1956, and he's the now the manager of the Baltimore Orioles. You just named it. But at the time, the pitching coach for Cleveland. And so I grabbed him and I introduced myself and I said, I'm from Jamestown, and do you remember Jamestown? And I'd like to videotape just some reminiscences for, I don't know, like we're doing here. He said, sure, I'd be happy to. So we sat in Jacobs Field. We're in the dugout, and Phil's talking like he rehearsed this for days. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful reminiscences about Jamestown and the early years, because this was his first year. And most people reminisce their first year. They don't know what they did their second or third year, but the first year. So it was important. So Phil went on and on and on, and he goes, plus, Craig, I've got to tell you this one story that deals with the bus driver we had, a real character named Jerry Klein. And he went on, he said, and I remember to this day, off the top of his head, this song that Jerry Klein would sing to rookies who thought they were really hot stuff. And then he proceeded in Jacobs Field to sing this song that, verbatim, that Jerry Klein would sing to the public. This is no rehearsal. This is no fun. And it's terrific. Tears running down my eyes. So sometime when we get bored, we'll play some of that. But yeah, Jerry Klein. So he's, and interestingly enough, Evelyn Hyde in the books that she kept, there's a wonderful, when he died, Jerry Klein died, Frank did a wonderful reminiscence on him. And so I'm curious, for the tape purposes here, to get some recollections of Jerry Klein, because he must have been a fixture. I really don't remember him, but certainly the ball players do.
I had,
You remember a catcher by the name of Ginsberg? I remember he was with the Tigers, and it was Jerry's favorite player. It was Jewish.
yeah.
It was always Myron. Myron, he was calling him.
I remember Ginsburg.
We got a new pitcher in
Johnny Newman's
at one point, mid-season or whatever, and they wanted to, they got him in that day, and they were gonna issue him uniforms and just get him on the field, so they gave him a uniform, and he got number 6. My number was 6. And instead of batboy in the back, I had a reader number, just like everybody else did. And we're out there, and I didn't notice it. And before the game, and suddenly somebody spun me around, and I said, his voice says, "You're number 6." I said, "Yeah."
Washington Street there.
I got number 6.
What shades?
Okay, I wasn't catching on. Well, he couldn't have the same number the bat boy had. I just followed it to it. He went back in. I guess he was all over Jerry Klein to get him any number that was 6, because that was the bat boy's number. He didn't want to be associated with it. You know.
They weren't living together.
There was a third baseman named Mike Cloutier, who was a showboat. I mean, you're talking gold-plated Hollywood showboat. Good player, but I remember he thought he was the hottest thing to walk in that locker room. And as far as he was concerned, women were there for him to be amused by or something. Unfortunately, or whatever, they were amused by him. They just crowded all around because he had the greased back hairdo and the pompadour and the DA and all that stuff. And there's one particular, I remember this clear. He was changing clothes after the game was over. He puts on, they were red and white checkered Bermuda shorts, a matching red and white checkered short-sleeved shirt, and he's in front of the mirror with the sunglasses. Now it's dark out, it's pitch black, it's 9 o'clock at night or whatever. Putting on the sunglasses and getting just right, no socks and loafers. And got himself just, and the guys, remember, he was really primping, and he apparently there was some young lovely he had met during the game, I guess, that came for an honor. Anyway, it was all arranged. He was going to go out with her, and she was going to be waiting outside the locker room. And he paraded to the door and flung open the door and stepped out like there wasn't a soul out there. There was absolutely no one out there. And because I was leaving kind of right behind him, and he's looking around and finally brings the sunglasses out so they can see something. And
Life's longest moment.
yeah. He kind of hung around there for maybe 30 seconds, and he went back in the locker room. And I think a couple of the ball shaggers came in, and I knew them. I was shooting the breeze, and I'm pretty soon he kind of sticks his head out again like this. And back in, finally, he just left. She wasn't there. It was hilarious to me to watch this guy just preening himself with this ridiculous outfit on. It was ridiculous. I think the sunglasses were so he couldn't hurt his eyes.
What about the visiting bat boy? How was that handled?
Sometimes the other team would bring their own, but usually it was just anybody that came over and asked if they could do the job. That was all. There was no regular visiting bat boy that I recall. We went to, I did go to one other road game, but it was out and back, and it was at Olean. And somehow I had forgotten to bring my socks. I had the white ones, but I didn't have the black ones. And I couldn't go out there like that. So I think I asked Jerry Klein what to do. He said, "What do I look like, tailor or something? I was supposed to bring extra socks for you or something." And he said, "Go see the manager of the other team, the Olean team, and see if you can borrow." So I said, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." So I went over there and found the manager and explained the situation. Well, the Olean team had yellow stripes on the black sock. And I said, you don't have any black ones? He says, no. And I said, maybe I could take some shoe polish and cover it. He says, no. You want to borrow those, that's what you get. That's what we have. So I worked that game with these enemy socks on. You know, it's just, and I had my pants pulled down as far as I get to try and cover them up. But they still, I was humiliated that I had to wear these yellow stripes on these socks. And I couldn't wait to get them back to it at the end of the game, but at least I didn't have just plain white socks on.
Steve, you did this for a couple of years, 2 years?
2 or 3, yeah.
Was Max Macon, was he the manager at any point? Does that name ring a bell?
That doesn't sound familiar, but now that you say Max, that catcher I was talking about that was cut from the team, his name was Max something.
Oh, it was a booklet there, this is all the managers.
Oh, there.
Yeah, one of those booklets.
Okay. He was after the book, last book.
It's getting cold in here. They're bringing that carpet in through the doors in it. Maybe you didn't feel it.
That was back in the days when they used ball shaggers too.
Yes.
Now they don't do that anymore. Used to be some small wars going on then.
I didn't want to do it. That was the last thing I ever wanted to do was put those shag balls out there.
How'd that work?
Well, there'd be usually one kid on the roof, and if the ball went over the roof, he would run for the back fence that overlooked the gates and so forth. And there was usually anywhere from 4 to 6 shaggers out in the street. And he would just, point with ball, and whichever way it was headed for, and there'd be this mad rush. I think they were paid by the ball, like 25 cents for every ball they returned, something like that. And so there was definite competition. And I don't know how they actually designated the ball shaggers. I think they just sort of appropriated, the 5 of us are going to be the ball shaggers, anybody else comes around, we run them off. I think that was more or less how it worked. There was, I think, 2 others outside the fence, up in the pine trees and up in there that would go after balls, but that was free territory up there. Anybody working in the pines could have a ball if they were fast enough, unless it went in that little runoff creek that ran behind this fence, because if they hit that, you never saw it. There was quicksand in there. All kinds of stuff. I'll bet now if they were to ever dredge that out, they'd probably find 500 baseballs in it, this big, they're all swollen up. But that was another thing that Mr. Donatelli, when he was umpire, he would always, when he needed balls, he would call for the ball boy. I guess some teams have a specialist who is, does nothing but bring balls up, the umpire. And he'd holler to me, ball boy, and he'd hold up 3 fingers or whatever, and I'd run out there with him and say, I'm the bat boy. We don't have a ball boy. Give him 2 innings later, ball boy, I'm the bat boy, I am not the and he never, when he needed balls, I was the ball boy. That was all there was to it. I was not the bat boy. And that was a running conflict there all the time.
How'd the team do?
Pardon?
How'd the team do?
As I recall, they did well. I don't know if they were ever, I don't recall them ever going to a league championship or anything like that. I really don't remember. I never paid attention really to, I was having such a good time, I didn't care. If they lost every game, it wouldn't have mattered to me. I was just having a ball down there. But I recall, it seems to me they did fairly well. You could probably look up, I'm sure there's old records that would tell, but they were a competent team, but I don't know if they were the best. It just seems like Jamestown's always had good, competent teams, but never championship type teams. What the heck?
Did you get to practice with them?
Oh yeah, I'd when the manager was hitting infield practice and stuff there with the fungo bat, I was the catcher. I'd catch the ball back from first base or wherever it came from. These guys would try and knock me down. I mean, there was no question in my mind. They were putting every ounce of steam on that ball they could do. Most of them would just lob it back, but there was a couple guys, catch this, zing! I don't remember ever one, ever ducking for cover, and I dropped a few. Some of them just went right through my glove. But I do that. I would, when they have hitting practice, I'd always go out in the outfield, catch out there. Played pepper time and time again with the guys right there by the third base foul line. In fact, one time I came walking out there and they were playing pepper, and they usually just kind of tack on the line there. And I come out and I stood there to get ready, and all of a sudden they stopped. I think there was 4 other guys catching one batter, and they all got together. And I felt, I wasn't sure what to react to, and finally I sort of started to slink away because I honestly didn't know what was going on, but I knew they were talking about me. And finally one of them came running and said, "Come on, you play." I said, "What was that?" I said, "Oh, we did that to everybody. We just pretend like we're talking about it, but we're not. We're just going, see if we're going to let them in or not." I mean, that's what I say. I got treated pretty much just like one of the gang down there, and it was also kind of funny too because I was at least as tall or taller than a lot of the players, and I'd be mistaken for, at least from the back anyway, for being on the team and so forth. I guess it was they just didn't look at me as being this little kid, which most kids that are working bat boy jobs are 10, 11, 12 years old, about that high. They look like little kids. And I think it was because I was a little more their size or something that I just got kind of just taken under the wings. And they used to sit and chew big gobs of tobacco, so I had a big gobs of bubble gum. Or licorice was better because I would spit that and it looked like tobacco. I'm spitting away. In fact, one of them got me to try, a microscopic piece of chewing tobacco one time, and I immediately swallowed it. And I was sick. I was sick for a couple hours. That ruined it.
Russ, were you involved with the team then?
Yes. That's when Hillman Lyons and Marty Haynes and a few of us were involved with the team. Because Hillman had brought Nick. Hillman came in here to run the Hotel Jamestown. He had been with Detroit and knew Detroit people well, Campbell and John McHale and all those people. So he was able to get the Tigers in here. And he had known of young Ciccarelli, so he got Ciccarelli in as a general manager.
How did they convince? They were out of baseball from 57 through then. How did they convince Detroit to do something? Why then?
I think Hillman called some IOUs in. And they were looking for some place for Class D baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Hillman was good friends with a lot of those people. He called a few IOUs, I'm sure. And Hillman had, he had some arms out in the community, working at the hotels. We were able to generate some advertising revenue. Got it off to a start.
Yeah.
But that whole cycle then went soft.
Stubby Overmeyer was the only other one. Yeah.
Bedrock and Stevie over.
That's good. Beat that.
Take it with you, Lyle, and read it.
First of all, no, I never did. I never played organized baseball. When I tried out for Little League 2 or 3 times, and I just didn't have the coordination. I couldn't, I just couldn't walk and chew gum. Yeah, I know. They went on to great careers. When I tried out, I tried out for Babe Ruth League 2 years. Could not get picked by anybody because again I was 8th grade. I grew 7.5 inches. So I was just
so tall.
arms and legs, and I couldn't do anything right. Well, I finally got organized when I was 15, which was my last year of eligibility for Babe Ruth. I remember going down to Van Avenue. Rosemont Park. I was there at the tryouts down there, and I was trying out for first base. And my mother had, when she played softball, very tall. She'd always played first base, so she had a first base softball glove, but it was a first base glove. And I was snagging everything. I was catching everything that didn't put anywhere near me.
Rangy.
Yeah, and I wasn't hitting bad, and so forth. And finally, it was all over with, and we were waiting. So we'd be notified in a couple days if we ever got, to pick for a team. And I recall that one of the team managers was Augie Grant, who lives just up the street from us on Durant. And I didn't hear it. And finally, so because I used to pal around with his son, John. Funny, I called him up, or I stopped the house or something. I said, did you ever hear anything? Dave? And he said, well, yeah, they did. There were several teams were interested in you because you were catching everything that was near first base. He said, but nobody picked you because you're 15, it's your last year of eligibility. You would only be able to play one season, and then they have to look for somebody else. And I thought to myself, what a crock of a reason. But that was the reason. And so, when I finally got to the point where I could play the game, we played Sandlot all the time. All the time, because there was that little stadium right down, two of them, one on either side of the main stadium. You were down there all the time. Then I tried out for the high school baseball team, and didn't make that one either, because that was, again, they already had a real good junior who was first base. He had that position locked up, so my next option was outfield. And I was catching the ball okay, but I didn't hit very well in tryouts, because whoever they had pitching was some flamethrower of some kind, and I just couldn't hit it. So
That was it.
yeah, that was my baseball career. I loved it. I loved being around it. And of course, maybe I got a little spoiled because I considered myself to be professional, because of the Tigers.